Have you ever stopped to think about the journey electricity takes to get to you? To power up your phone or just flip on a light? Well, a huge new piece of legislation, the Electricity Amendment Bill of 2025, is about to completely change that entire system. And believe me, this isn't just some small adjustment. It's a total reimagining of India's power sector from the ground up.
So you're probably asking, why now? I mean, the last major law was back in 2003. That's almost 2 decades ago. And the simple answer? The system we have right now is in a full-blown crisis. And this bill, well, it's being presented as the big fix we desperately need.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into why the power sector is in such a mess. Then we'll look at the bill's big solutions, especially this new idea of competition and consumer choice. We'll also tackle the big question of how it protects farmers and families. And finally, we'll see how it plans to build a grid that's ready for the future.
Okay, first things first, the crisis. Before we can even talk about the solution, you have to understand the incredible scale of the problem that's been building up in India's power sector for years.
So the heart of the problem really comes down to these companies called discoms. They're the ones who handle that final step, getting electricity into our homes and businesses. But, for a very long time, they've been trapped. A mix of low regulated prices, power losses, and late subsidy payments has left them sinking in debt.
And the size of this debt is just staggering. We're talking about cumulative losses of 6.9 lakh crore rupees. And look, this isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's a real threat to the stability of the whole system. When discoms can't pay their bills, it sets off a chain reaction that puts everyone from the power plants to you and me at risk.
This quote from the Ministry of Power really puts it all into perspective. The goal of a developed India by 2047, well, it needs a power sector that's financially strong. You just can't power that kind of massive economic growth with a broken, debt-ridden system. It's that simple.
So, we've seen the problem. It's huge. How on earth do you fix something like this? That brings us to the bill's big ideas. The Electricity Amendment Bill is designed to be a top-to-bottom solution to pull the sector back from the brink.
And here it is, the bill itself. It's a formal proposal that lays out some really significant structural reforms that go right to the root of the problem. So what are the biggest changes it's bringing to the table?
At the very core of this whole reform is one powerful idea: the cost-reflective tariff. Now, that sounds a bit technical, but it's actually pretty simple. For years, the price we paid for power was often less than what it actually cost to produce and deliver. This bill says that has to change. The price must reflect the true cost, and that's the foundation for making the whole system financially healthy again.
But wait, what about subsidies for farmers or for households that really need them? This is a huge concern, and here's how the new model is supposed to work. First, regulators set the real price of power. Then, if a state government wants to offer a subsidy, it pays that money directly to the company, and, this is key, it pays it in advance. This means, and this is step 3, that the people who need that subsidy still pay their lower rate. It's a pretty smart way to separate financial health from social support.
Okay, so fixing the finances is one thing. But this bill introduces another pretty radical idea for the power sector: actual competition. We're talking about breaking up the monopolies that we've all been used to for decades.
You can really see the difference here. It's a move from the old way, a total monopoly where one company controlled everything and you had no choice, to a new competitive market. Multiple companies can now compete for your business. So what's the big takeaway? For the first time ever, you might actually get to choose who you buy your electricity from.
So you might be wondering, how does this actually work? Are they going to build a whole new set of poles and wires for every company? Well, no. Multiple suppliers will operate in the same area, but they will all use the same shared network of wires. This avoids wasting a ton of money. And, very importantly, there's something called a universal service obligation, which means no company can just refuse to provide you with service.
Of course, a change this massive is going to raise a lot of questions, especially for regular households and farmers. So let's just tackle the biggest concerns head-on, using answers that come directly from the government's own official documents.
This is it. This is probably the #1 question on everyone's mind. With all this talk of new tariffs and competition, is my electricity bill going to skyrocket?
According to the official answer, it's a clear no. The whole point of bringing in competition is to force companies to be more efficient, and that should actually lower the overall cost of supplying power. For anyone getting a subsidy, the price they pay shouldn't change. In fact, it should actually cost the state government less to provide that same subsidy. Okay, here's another big worry.
What about all the government electricity companies we've had for decades? Are they just going to be replaced and shut down by private companies?
And again, the official answer is no. The goal here isn't to get rid of them, it's to make them compete. The government companies will still be around, but now they'll have to compete on service and on price, just like everyone else, on a level playing field.
You know, this bill is about so much more than just money and competition. It's also packed with a bunch of other reforms that are all designed to modernize India's entire power grid and get it ready for the future.
Let's do a quick rundown. It's going to require companies to buy more renewable energy to meet our climate goals. It's bringing in new cybersecurity rules to protect the grid. It's creating an electricity council so the center and states can work together better. It's also making it easier to build new power lines and making sure that any disputes get solved within 120 days.
So when you take a step back and look at all these pieces together, the financial fix, the competition, the focus on consumers, and all this modernization, you really start to see the grand vision here. It's a push for a power sector that's reliable, affordable, clean, and strong enough to fuel India's growth for decades.
And that brings us to the final big question. The problems in India's power sector are deep, and they've been around for a long, long time. This bill is probably the most ambitious attempt ever to solve this giant puzzle. But will it be enough? Well, that's the 6.9 lakh crore rupee question, and the answer is something we're only going to find out in the years ahead.